Shri Mataji. So yeah, I just wanted to do that little meditation beforehand, really just to remind myself that these stories are not about us. It's not about Natalie and me. It's about trying to convey the kind of magic, the magnificence, really, and the beauty of Shri Mataji's incarnation, And when you're telling these stories, you can get a little bit carried away sometimes. I just wanted to remind myself about who it's really about. Um, and we kind of chose this photograph um, because this photograph was taken in Volterra when Shri Mataji was giving a very specific talk, and which was linked directly to the reason why we ended up living in Italy. Um, and I think many people know the story, but I'll kind of repeat it anyway. But because I think everybody knows um, how Shri Mataji associated Italy and England with each other by saying that England is the spirit, of course, as we all know, but Italy is the soul. Yes. And in this is in Volterra in 1986, which is a small town in Italy. Shri Mataji was explaining this to the yogis present, and what she was saying was that the spirit needs something to reflect um, its rays on, if you like, rather like the sun. You can't see the light of the sun until it's reflected on something. And so she was saying that the soul has that function. It has this function of kind of reflecting the spirit and manifesting the spirit.
and that's why the relationship between Italy and England is so important. And and um, and while she was talking, gave the example of she was talking about the glass and saying how the light is reflected in the glass and so on. And and if you look at that glass, you can see all the chakras lined up in that glass. And so it's just, for me, it's such a unique picture in that sense because it captures that moment. And and there's a kind of magic to it because it really um, illustrates that relationship. And so in 1986, Shri Mataji was talking a lot about this, and she started sending people to Italy. And I was one of those people. I think I was one of the first people. There was Jeremy Lemaison who was already there. And she sent, after that, she sent many other, she sent Victor, she sent Finbar, different people ended up living in Italy. And that was very much um, in the kind of, it is very, very much to do with that. And actually, very interestingly, when she sent me to Italy, she said to me, remember that you have everything to learn from the Italians and nothing to teach them. And I always took that. I never took that personally. I always took that to mean she was talking actually about the English in general.
Yes.
And another thing that she was saying a lot about in those days was she was talking about the bumptiousness of the English. And so, and I think the Italians are the perfect antidote to the bumptiousness of the English, And so, I do recommend all English people should spend some time in Italy. Of course, Cabella's there for that purpose. But so, and it was being able to spend all those years in Italy for me was, for both of us, was this incredible experience. But the story of how I ended up there specifically is an interesting one because I had been um, sent to Belgium by Shri Mataji um, over that summer, the summer of '86. And the reason for that was that Nathalie's parents were going through a divorce, yeah, and um, and naturally Nathalie's mother was very upset, and mother said, if you go there, just an outside, you're an outside presence, even though we were engaged, we weren't yet married, we were engaged. As an outside presence, you'll just ground her. She will, you know, emotionally, she will not go to the extremes if you're there. Whereas if you're not there, she will get lost in their emotions and so on. And so, and then Shri Mataji herself came to Belgium a few weeks, a
Yeah,
month
for
later,
public
maybe a
programs.
month
Yeah.
later or something. I can't remember. Um, and she stayed at Nathalie's house and Nathalie's mother's house. She was staying there. And I always remember a particular episode at the airport. Um, we'd prepared this banner for Shri Mataji. We were young kids. Imagine, there was Natalie, myself, and a couple of the other the few Yuva that existed in those days, and we prepared this banner of a welcoming Shri Mataji for as she arrived in Belgium, and when she came through um, customs, I was holding one of the ends, and I can't remember who was holding the other end. I can't remember, and and that was that. And she came through, and then when we were back in her her house, or Natalie's mother's house, she made this comment to me. She says, "Oh, I noticed your hand was shaking. What's wrong with you?" And and it was just such a typical thing of Shri Mataji, that because I think the fact that she'd sent me to Belgium, and you know there was a little bit of sense of I'd been sent there with a mission, and perhaps, my ego was a little bit, present, there holding the banner, and here I was, I've done my job, Shri Mataji. And she just put me quietly in my place, just quite said, oh, your hand was shaking. Why was your hand shaking? What's wrong? And you think, oh God, okay, got the message. And but it was uh, an amazing time. I mean, there was you had a few stories about
Yeah,
Tunisia.
yeah. So Belgium's quite famous for carpets, historically. And so she wanted to go to some carpet shops. And we went to sort of various different shops, sort of from the ones that sold beautiful Persian style rugs to, a place where you can buy fitted carpets and some rugs as well. So
In fact, she had always bought carpets from
yeah,
Belgium.
she always used to buy carpets from Belgium, including for Shudi camps. So yeah, always. And the fitted carpet, for example. I think even for Kabbalah, some of them for the castle, I believe as well.
Yeah, I think the one
Yeah,
that's in Mother's room now, which is a new carpet, which to was
yeah,
was is definitely from Belgium. Yeah.
yeah. And so that's very, very nice. Very lucky, very fortunate. And so we went into the shop, and she was looking at various things for I think for Shudi camps, or for one of her houses basically. And one of those big places where they sell all kinds of carpets.
Hmm.
And she noticed that one of the shop assistants was limping, and she clearly like hurt her foot. And so so Shimataji said, call her over, and I want to ask her what happened to her. So I was translating, and so she called the lady, and so she said, what happened to her? Why is she limping like that? There's something wrong with her foot. And so the lady said yes, that she'd hurt her foot very badly, and she couldn't walk properly. And so she said, well, ask her to sit down. And next to me, Shimaji was given a chair. And so, she asked the lady to sit next to her. And she said, ask her if she would like me to, help her to get rid of her foot issue. And so the lady said, yes. And so she said, okay, sit down. And so Shimaji took out of her shoes and asked the lady to take out her shoes as well. And so Shimaji put her foot on top of this lady's foot and pressed it down really hard, like quite strongly. So this lady was like, ah, like Shimaji kept pressing, pressing, pressing. And this lady was like, it really hurt. It was really in agony. And then this was for a few minutes. This went on, and then Shimaji eventually took off her foot.
She was moving around.
Yeah, she's like moving it in different places,
Yeah.
like left, right, sort of finding, and this lady was like, "Ah,"
In agony.
in
Yeah.
agony. And so this went on for quite a few minutes. And eventually she, removed the foot, Shimataji, and she says, now try and stand up and walk. So lady stood up, walked perfectly, like completely, completely cured. Like,
Wow.
and this woman was just absolutely
Couldn't believe it.
couldn't believe it, and all flabbergasted, and in tears, and I mean, literally, I mean,
I think that's the only time I've ever seen Shri
yeah,
physically cure someone.
yeah,
Personally, I mean, I've never seen her do
no,
it.
in fact,
Wow.
You
no, absolutely, and
So,
wasn't there? I mean, but also about. I remember you always tell the story about because the impact she has when she
yeah,
arrives in places is also
yes,
she just transforms the whole
yeah,
mood,
yeah.
doesn't she? So you were saying
exactly.
that there was
Well,
not the
in this case, it was pretty obvious, and but then there was another shop we went to, again a carpet shop, and this was a sort of quite a posh, really nice, expensive shop. And I remember you're going in, and there was a man there, the shop assistant, and he looked really grumpy, like really, one of those people that have that, scowl on their face, really. And I thought, oh gosh, I really don't want to bring Shri Mataji into a shop with a person looking like that, with that kind of attitude and that kind of body language. I was like really, sort of quite a bit worried. And then this was only like a few seconds, of me thinking this and worrying, because the next thing I kind of look, and there he is, perfectly happy, smiling, chatting to her. I mean, like, again, like from, being this really grumpy, angry looking man with this, sort of frown and scowl on his face, he suddenly was, like this cheerful, happy, relaxed person. And this transformation just took place in like sort of like a matter of seconds, and then the whole atmosphere changed, and he was there helping her, showing her carpets, it was like a different person.
So it's Shri Mataji's absolute magnetism, isn't it? When she's
literally
with
just
us, it just
entering
changes everything.
Yeah, entering the shop. She didn't even have to, she didn't even say anything, but it was literally just him looking at her, literally just from like that to that, from day to night,
Wow.
complete transformation,
And that was her effect.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw it countless times, where she just emanated a light. So it's difficult to describe it in any other way. Like there was this light that came from her. Not literally, obviously, but it was, or an energy, and everything was around it was transformed. And sometimes it would make the boots jump in some people, and they react the opposite.
Yeah.
But generally, it was just you'd see, people would just transform around her. So it was important story for that, because that was I think one small example of what happened wherever Shri Mataji went.
And especially putting in perspective I mean, here we are. I remember when in England we would receive Shri Mataji at the airports, the light that you've just mentioned and the transformation, it was just such a palpable feeling. You could feel it. You couldn't see it, the joy, the lightness, and the serenity of the whole thing. Of being with mother in her presence, isn't it? And here it was somebody who had no sort of connection with Shri Mataji as such. He wasn't a Sahaja, not meditating, but
didn't come to the program. Exactly. It was just a shop assistant who, obviously was in a lot of pain, and mother just,
even in later years when she was, much older and frail and in the wheelchair, you'd even in those, so even then, you'd go with her to different places,
to the outlet.
The impact was the same, undiminished.
Because there is this famous photo which we probably don't have now, but in these later years, as you've just mentioned, there Shri Mataji's shoe shopping or something, isn't it? And yet she gives realization, and that whole time when Shri Mataji was so quiet to everyone during the pujas and things, it was just such joy to see that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Were you there when this happened?
I was definitely,
or a shopping experience, because she would go to a quarter.
Yeah, no. I mean, I was there often.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was there on that occasion. I mean, I definitely was shoe shopping with her once, with the CP. But I don't specifically remember her giving realization to someone. But yes, I mean on those occasions, that's when you'd see that kind of impact, definitely. But yeah, so
I don't know what these people further along, the line, what impact they might have on the world, and who knows what the reason was and what the
It's interesting, actually. We were talking about it this weekend with some friends of ours. That Shri Mataji would sometimes say to people, like this person, Anthony, or it was Christina, she was telling about her mother, or perhaps it's her mother, no, her mother or her father, maybe both, her parents, yeah. And no, specifically about her father, actually, and saying, you know, Shimaji told Christina that her father is going to be a great Sahaja Yogi, but not in the way that you understand, not in the way that you are. And you know, and in fact, he never came to Sahaja Yoga. He was respected Shimaji, but he never came to Sahaja Yoga. And I remember also we were once having Shimaji invited the mayors, or one of the mayors, to tea in the castle with his wife.
When was this?
This would have been 2000.
Early 2000s, yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, 2000, say
6, 7, 8.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, around then, you know, 10 maybe, I can't remember, around those days, you know, when I was working for the foundation. And it was the mayor and of Kabbalah, or he was the ex-mayor of Kabbalah at that stage. But he was the guy. He had a lot of dealings with Shimaji. He was the guy who showed Shimaji around the castle in the first instance, and who brokered the purchase of the castle. And he always has a very special relationship with Shimaji, you know. And
very nice guy.
Yeah, very nice guy. And Gianni Piazzale, he was called. And she'd invited him up to tea with his wife, and Shimaji was telling off his wife. You know, she was telling her off, you know. And I can't remember exactly what it was, but she was, yeah, maybe I don't know. Anyway, she was telling her, but what she was saying was, you don't know. He's a great Sahaja, and he's going to be of great help to me. And again, you know, so, and he, of course, he's never been a Sahaja in the sense that we understand, but you know, there's all this stuff going on in the background that we've got no idea about, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, people whose meth has encountered, given vibrations to, maybe in just a shop, who knows? You know, who knows?
You just don't know
what their contribution is, you know. And something interesting she always used to say was, she would always buy things that were on display or in the windows.
Yeah.
Because she would say that, you know, then all the people who've seen those products,
or walked past it even,
or walked past, get my vibrations.
Yeah.
So yeah, interesting. But you know, going back to the kind of original stories as to why we ended up in Italy, or how we ended up in Italy, why I ended up in Italy.
Yes, yeah. Yes, please. If you could tell us the sort of rough dates and times when.
So this would have been so I'd just graduated from university. It was 1986. It was, you know, and I think Shimaji had just given this. She'd been in Italy before she came to Belgium, so she'd given that talk in Volterra a little bit before that, and I just graduated from university. I literally just got my degree, and so Shimaji was always, you know, asking me, okay, well, what do you want to do with your life? And I was coming up with all these ideas, and she was always saying, no, that's no good, that's no good. And then she'd come up with her own ideas, and it was kind of like an ongoing conversation the whole time she was there, you know. And by the end of it, I had no idea what she actually thought I should be doing, you know. So the day she was leaving, she was just getting into the car to go to the airport, and she was sitting in the car, but with her feet out of the car, but sitting in the car. And I was there, and I said to Shimaji, so Shimaji, in the end, what is it that I should be doing? And I remember she closed her eyes, and she just you know, like she kind of went somewhere, and she opened this. She said, "Okay, you must go straight back to England. Go straight back to Shuddhi camps." And I said, "Oh, okay." So, and I said, "Should I wait? Should I first wait and help with the follow-up programs here in Belgium, and then go back, And then again, she closed her eyes and she said, "No, go back immediately." So when she um, so after she left, I literally left immediately, and I remember I kind of went back to Shuri camps and got back to Shuri camps very late at night, I remember. And um, the and I got a message when I got to Shuri camps that I needed to go immediately to the next day. I needed to go to the airport to meet a Sahaja Yogi called Javier Valderrama, who's a Sahaja Yogi from Italy. And what had happened is when Shri had returned on a flight from Belgium, Javier, who had been visiting from England on a business trip, and he was at some sort of conference center just around the corner from Heathrow. So he'd managed to nip out and greet Shri Mataji when she arrived at the airport before nipping back to his conference. And when Shri Mataji saw him, she says, "Ah, Javier, I've got this young boy. I'd like you to look after him and help him find a job in Italy. And can he stay with you until he finds his feet?" And Javier, of course, said yes. Shimashi, no problem. And so, but he was leaving that night. So when I got to Shuri camps, it was like go straight to Heathrow and meet him before he gets in the airplane and goes back to Italy. So I literally arrived at Shuri camps and kind of left again, and went to Heathrow and managed to meet Javier um, just 5 minutes before he was getting on his flight. We had a cup of tea together, and he says, "Look, I don't know if I can help you. I don't know what I can do, but just come and stay with us, and let's see how it goes." And so I then got this message. I can't remember how I got the message, but I got this message to go and see Shri Mataji. So literally from the airport, I went to Shri Mataji's house. And it wasn't Brompton Square, it was somewhere else in those days. And anyway, I went to Shri Mataji,
In
and she
London.
said, in London, yeah. And she said, "How did it go?" And I said, "Did you meet him?" I said, "Yeah, I met him." And he says, "Okay, great. So um, off you go." And I literally I had £200. I just graduated. I had £200 in my pocket. That was it. And I thought, well, if I don't go immediately, um, I could be, I'm going to spend the money, and it could be months before I get enough money to fly out. So I'll just fly out, and that'll pay my ticket, and I'll have a few bit of money in my pocket. Javier's offered to put me up, and we'll see how it goes. And um, and I think within 2 days I had a job, working as a teacher, which I had no intention of doing, and I'd always said I would never be a teacher. And I remember months later when she actually came to Italy, and I kind of said I was a teacher, and I was hoping she'd say, "No, no, find something else." She's so fantastic, because she'd originally said when go to Italy and work for Olivetti. So I was hoping she was going to confirm that I wouldn't have to remain a teacher, but she said, "No, no, be a teacher." That's fantastic. That's great. And so that's kind of how we ended up in Italy. So it was part of that soul spirit thing, but it was also just really interesting how Shimata just kind of knew if I hadn't gone back immediately, I would have missed Javier. How she knew that she was going to, or somehow that she was going to meet Javier, and it was all going to work out. And yeah, the rest is history. I mean, I remember a while later. I mean, obviously, Shimata came to Italy several times, and on one occasion, it was at that stage, it was just me and Jeremy who were the English people in Italy, and we were both living in Milan. And and I remember she came and she spoke to me and Jeremy, and already then she was talking about coming to live in Italy. Um, um, and would have been in the late 80s, 89, so 80, I can't remember exactly, but she was talking, she'd come to visit, she'd seen the house. We had this ashram in Garlate, which is this beautiful kind of villa
on the lake
with a huge garden which ran down onto the lake of Lecco, which is kind of a lake which is joined to the Como Lake. It's absolutely stunning property, and she'd been there. And in 1988, she did Krishna Puja, and she did the marriages there. And she spoke about initially about buying that particular place, and for when Sir CP retired. He hadn't quite retired at that stage. And she was saying, sort of at that stage, Jeremy and you must come and live with me in the whatever house I get you. And it was kind of, you have things complete. This is before Kabbalah had even been thought of, imagined. So it was just, wow, we're going to be living with Shemati. We didn't quite understand in what terms. And as it turned out, Jeremy didn't end up coming to Kabbalah. Mother had another kind of purpose for him. He ended up being the leader of Milan. He did a lot of work sort of for Shemati in other ways. But of course, we ended up living in Kabbalah along with other people. But I always remember Shemataji on one of those occasions, when she came to visit, this is before Kabbalah, she was reflecting on this sort of whole idea of how Italy had a positive impact on English people. And she was saying, she's very pleased with her experiment and saying, look, it's really worked. You have managed to both you and Jeremy have managed to completely overcome your English conditionings. But then she kind of thought a bit and she said, but you're not really English, are you? Because I'm actually half Argentine. My father is Argentine. She says, you're kind of half Argentine. In fact, but Jeremy is completely English. So the merit is all his, because he has managed to keep all the good English conditionings and lose all the bad ones. You haven't got the English conditions, but you never really were completely English, And she said, I remember what struck me. She said, you even walk like an Argentine. So if you want to know how the Argentines walk, look at me. That's how the Argentines walk. I don't know what that means. But so yes, so she was very happy with that experiment. I think she she genuinely felt that Italy had this very kind of positive impact on English people, and she sent other people as well, and I remember, and it wasn't easy. Well, I wouldn't say it wasn't easy, but in the English were always being, as were always being sort of papashed by Shemati for one thing or another, whereas the Italians could never put a foot wrong. The Italians were brilliant. The Italians were amazing. And so I remember on one occasion, Shemataji. So this delegation of English people came into Shemataji, and this is many years later. I'm talking about now, and this is when I was working for the foundation. So I'm talking about, so it would have been 2010, 2009, something like that. And this delegation of English yogis came to offer some flowers. They were volunteers at the castle, and they came and offered some flowers at Shemataji's feet. And I happened to be there, and I was sitting right at Shemataji's feet. And Shemataji was, giving this strong papach to the English, And I had this terrible coughing fit, or I had a dry throat, and I really wanted to cough, but I was sitting right at Shemataji's feet, so I didn't want to cough. So I was stifling this cough, and because I was stifling this cough, my eyes were kind of watering, and I was sitting like, and Shemataji was saying to the English, and see, look at Robert, he's in tears because he's so upset, and this is the impact of Italy, living in Italy. He's become so sensitive, and he's and so uh, it's just quite comical because, but the but yeah, the Italians could never put a foot wrong. And certainly when she was talking to me, she was always putting the Italians on this pedestal, and they were. I mean, the Italians are incredible. I mean, they have this relationship from the heart with everything, and especially with Shri Mataji.
Yeah.
And the longer I was there, the more I really was able to understand what she meant. That actually we have nothing to teach them and everything to learn from them. And I count myself to have been incredibly blessed to have had that opportunity to spend all those years in Italy and discover a way of being which really helps me, certainly spiritually. So yeah, I mean,
So amazing.
Human quality of life.
Yes. It's emotional intelligence, isn't it? That's what Shri Mataji was.
Lightness and exuberance.
Yes. Yeah. Expressing yourself, the feelings, isn't it? But it's such a comical, hilarious way of illustrating only Shri Mataji can do.
Yeah. I mean, I was, for example, I always say, if an Englishman tells you, yeah, he likes your shirt, you're never quite sure if he does. Whereas an Italian says he likes your shirt, he does. And that that is a subtle difference between them, and that's how I would characterize it.
But,
very true.
But then, in the end, that didn't happen. No? The purchase of the house in Garlate didn't happen because they asked for a ridiculous amount of money, which was totally unreasonable. And so what happened is that when Shri Mataji was the first sort of talk of having a Sahaj school in India, while this was being set up, some children were sent to stay with us in the ashram in Garlate for a couple of months, and this would have been 1990, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh yeah.
Yes, and there was mainly Swiss children in Garlate.
No, it was before that. It was earlier than that. 1990 was Mauritius.
Yes, you're right. So 88, 89, yeah, kind of thing. Yeah, sorry, you're right. While the school was being set up, Shri Mataji said, let them come and stay in Garlate in Italy. You can send them to the local school during the day, and then they come back to the ashram. They have Sahaja life. So this was for a good sort of number of months,
Yeah.
And until the school in Dharamshala was sort of set up.
Yeah. So Jeremy Lamaison, she appointed him to be the kind of principal, if you like, or in charge of this. It wasn't really principal, but because of course they were going to the local Italian school, but coming back to the ashram to live,
Yeah.
And so you can say that in some ways Jeremy was the first principal of a Sahaj school,
Yeah.
And but it was interesting because again, many years later, when she actually set up the Kabbalah school, and I was the working for the foundation at the time, and so I was charged with the sort of the practicalities of setting all of that up, and I mean, she started talking about it, let's say around May, to start in September, and a matter of a few months to set up a school, and I was thinking, how do you do that? But she was, the school was, in the latter years of her life was absolutely the focus of her attention. That's, she was talking, I wouldn't say the only thing, but it was one of the main things she would speak about was the school. And so when I was thinking about how to do this, I went back to that idea. I went to Shri Mataji and I reminded her of how she had set up the school, that school in Garlate, while India school was being prepared. And I said, can we do the same thing? Can we send the kids to the local school here and house them in Chantrasi as the kind of ashram? And she agreed to that. And she said, yes, that's fine. But she said, as long as it's temporary. And so, and she said she wanted it to be an English-speaking international school, and it had to be Sahaja. It had to be run by Sahaja. It had to be a proper Sahaja school. And so, we then introduced gradually year by year. So the first year, year one became the start of the Kabbalah school. And then the following year, and the year five then graduated from the local Italian school. And then the new intake came into our school. And then the following year, we created year two and so on. And that's how we kind of basically introduced the Kabbalah school, sort of year by year, and slowly kind of phased out the Italian school. Although that relationship became so important for the Valley, we continued with that for some time because it was important for us, but also for the Valley. I mean, which is very interesting because when we were setting up the school, there was enormous opposition in the Valley to setting up the school because they were. I mean, we went. I remember I went with Alda to a meeting with all the parents of children who were in the local school, and they were violently, I would say violently opposed. And because originally the idea was to send them to the school in Roqueta, and they felt that quite a typical phenomenon where they felt all these foreign kids coming in. How was that going to impact their children? These kids were going to hold them back, and so on and so forth. And in the end, the mayor had actually agreed to allow us to go and use the school, but he had to backtrack after that. And so in the end, we went further down the valley to Volterra.
Vignone.
Sorry, not Vignole. Sorry,
yeah,
not Volterra.
Just by Arquata, yeah.
Which is just as you enter off the motorway.
Yeah.
And they agreed to allow our kids to join their school there. And the impact that our kids had on that school was extraordinary. I remember, the teachers would say to us, they, apart from the fact, obviously they were incredibly bright, they learned Italian incredibly quickly, and they quite, far from holding the other kids back, they kind of enriched the school enormously. But I remember talking to the teachers, and the teachers saying, that our kids had this special emotional intelligence which other kids don't have. So they'd come to work. The teachers would come to work and perhaps had an argument with their husband, or something had happened, and the kid would come up and hold their hand and says, "Teacher, are you okay?" They'd notice when they weren't okay, and they'd come up and just hug them or hold their hand or something like that, and they're incredibly touched and moved by that. It says, normal kids don't do that. And I remember we used to take them to a local cafe for lunch, because the alternative was to send them to the priest. Because at lunchtime, all the kids would go to the local seminary for lunch.
Yeah.
So rather than send our kids there, we'd organise for them to go down to a local cafe, and it was a real truck driver's cafe, and because it was right just near the motorway, so all the truck drivers would come off the motorway, stop at that cafe, and have their dinner, and then move on. So you had these really kind of rough guys coming in there, having their lunch, And I remember the owner, the woman, the owner of this cafe said to me, since your kids have been coming here, my business is booming because these truck drivers loved just spending time with our kids because they'd be eating there, and of course the kids would be going and talking to them and this, that, and the other. And it became an event. These truck drivers wanted to come and have lunch with these kids. And so, and yeah, so they had some incredible impacts. And of course, when we withdrew the kids from the school, um, and because we'd established the Hajj school, I remember personally, I'd by that time even left Kabbalah. I'd finished. I'd stopped being the director of the foundation, and a delegation came to me and petitioned me, can you please ask the foundation to support our school and send your kids to our school because otherwise we're closing down.
Which year was this? Amazing.
This would have been after I left. So I finished working for the foundation 2013. So I can't remember when exactly, but
about 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Wow.
And so yeah, huge impact.
But yeah, so in 1990, the contract renewal was up for this house in Garlate, and they were asking for such a high price that we couldn't do it. So we started an ashram with 4 young families in the center of Milan. So I'm on a very busy road, a concrete jungle. And
so we had one kid. Was
so
one?
we had one child by then, and I was pregnant of our second one. And I think there was 3 other families there, and funny enough, each wife was expecting as well.
So there was George,
George and Alison, Sandeep and Anita, Alberto and Nanda, and then the 2 of us. Yeah. And so one day, Shri Mataji was in Italy, and she happened to be driving past.
When she was looking, she was looking for the Kabbalah.
Yeah, she was looking for a place where to do, the Guru Puja in 1991, the summer of 1991. And so she, the Sahaja Yogis drove her past where we were living in this sort of flat building. And she said, oh, this is, the ashram of Milan. This is where these people live. And so apparently she looked and she sort of commented and said, they live in that box, in that box, they live in this box. She said, oh my God.
With
children in a box. And then a few months later, she then found Kabbalah. We did the Guru Puja there, and we had a big tent. And then a few months later, 5 months later, she invited us to come and live with her in the castle.
All the people living
in the box. Living in the castle, and then yes.
She said, you can't bring up children in a place like that, and so she got us all to go and live in Kabbalah with her.
Yeah, and that was very nice, and she called us, just before going to India, and she said, she gave us some instructions. She said, don't have baths, don't have showers. It's very cold. We didn't have hot water at that time.
You have to imagine, it was a complete ruin, except for the part where we were living.
Construction site, building site.
And there was no heating, there was no hot water, and winter was coming.
Yeah. And, Kabbalah's quite high up as well. So it's, the higher you go, the colder. And she said, don't give showers, don't give baths, just, sponge wash, yourselves and the children. We had like a little heater, with a gas cylinder in the room. And so, she said, turn that on in the room, sponge bath, bathe the children with, with the heating on. And then she gave us just some, practical advice. She said, don't take the children out, when it's winter, when it's dark and cold and humid, when they're small, it's not good because, the proximity of the river, can be sort of quite cold and damp.
I think,
she was
always
on the children.
Always on the children.
And then give them calcium until they're 12 years old as well. She said, calcium tablets is very important, not just for their bones, but also, just general protection. Yes. And
calcium tablets, so not just the food you're giving them.
Yeah, no, the calcium tablet supplement, she said, yeah. And we were very lucky because that winter, when we moved in on the 1st of December, 1991.
Wow.
By that time, we had 2 children, and a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old, and then everyone else had small children as well. And, and I mean, it was amazing. It was sunny every single day. We sat outside in the grass having lunch. I mean, it was
incredibly mild winter.
Incredibly mild winter, like, I've never seen anything like it. It was like, it's such a nice, but it was a blessing, a transition because, no hot water, no heating, small children. I think it was just mother's blessing,
Yes.
And yes, and then when she came back from India, she said, look at your children. They look so well. They look so healthy. They've got color on their cheeks. The countryside agrees with them. She said, when I saw them last, they were looking gray after living in Milan in the city, but look at them now. Said, you all have rosy cheeks. She was joking. She was saying, you all have rosy cheeks, even the adults, even the grown-ups.
And the salubrious surroundings.
Yeah. And then, and then the other thing is that then I was pregnant of our 3rd child, and again
the
following year sort of, and so she was going to India. Sort of winter came, and she said, so Nathalie, have you planned for the birth? Where are you going to give birth? And I said, well, Shri Mataji, I think I'll just go to the hospital here, Novi Ligure. And she said, Novi. She said, but, are you sure? Because, it's winter time and you don't have a car and the roads will be full of ice, and how are you going to manage? She said, no, I don't think that's a good idea. In fact, we didn't have a car. And because we remembered the previous year had been so mild, And so she says, no. She said, not a good idea. I think you should go to Belgium. Robert will take you. He'll take you, and then you stay with your mom, and she'll look after you, and then you'll go to the hospital there. And then after 40 days, Robert will come back and get you. So she arranged, she told me exactly what to do,
Yeah. But again, it was that
such care.
She knew that the winter was going to. Yeah. She gave us the mild winter the first year. By that time, there was actually she installed heating in the castle. I think that by the second winter.
Yes,
and she put, at least on that floor. On that floor, she put on our floor she put the central heating. But
and in fact, it turned out that exactly that winter was really harsh. There was no one in the castle, no one with a car who could have brought me to the hospital. Ice on the roads, like really, like the complete opposite of the year before,
Yeah.
And so,
she was so attentive. I mean, with all the things that she was, had her attention on and managing, and
for the details of their lives and making sure we were okay and the children were okay, and absolutely.
I mean, and one of the things, I mean, the castle was chaotic. I mean, it was. You have to imagine, that it was a building site. There were
100 golden builders.
Yeah. 80, at least 80. Okay.
Because we had to.
You had to cook. Yeah. Okay.
Yes, you had to cook, wasn't it?
But then also you have to imagine, in those days, Shri Mataji was traveling a lot. So Cabela was the base, but she was traveling all over the world, and everywhere she went, she would buy stuff, and all this stuff would end up coming back to Cabela. And now, in those days, we didn't have Daglio, we didn't have Centrassi, we didn't have other buildings. So everything would be stored in the attic or somewhere in this castle. And but of course, it was constantly being moved because as they were doing the building work, you had to move everything. So you kind of just lost track of everything. There was just chaos, And I always remember Shri Mataji. I mean, she would occasionally ask to see things, or some gift or something that she'd bought in some country that she'd been to, and she wouldn't just buy one or two things, but it was masses of stuff,
Yeah.
And which then she'd redistribute, give them a gift, send them to India. That was the other thing. You didn't have to send them off in other places, and keeping track of this was just, impossible. And then she would ask, okay, well find this because I want to send that to India or whatever it was, and you hunt around the castle to find it. You couldn't possibly find it. And then she would say, well, try and look in this place, and you'd go and look in that place, and there it was. And it's but so there was this, and it was dirty, it was messy. We had bringing up small kids in that environment, it was dangerous. But she insisted, she says, you have to live with dignity. And so, she arranged for us to have curtains made for all of our rooms. And she provided all the furniture, not just any furniture, nice furniture.
Beautiful.
And specifically, she bought, because we were all living in the mezzanine. There were 6 families, all living in the mezzanine, but there were these very small rooms. And she bought us these sofa beds. And she ordered them to be made and delivered. And these sofa beds were delivered on a day when Shri Mataji had decided that we were going to do Havan up on the
near the bridge, near her entrance,
in her entrance,
that square there,
Yes.
Before there was a proper
main
road
entrance.
at the back entrance, where the bridge is.
Top,
Shri Mataji's entrance, and it wasn't really. There was a kind of road, I guess, but it was still the tree in the middle. It was still a garden rather than that.
Where the fountain is?
Yes.
There used to be a tree there,
Okay.
And she was anyway. She decided we're going to do a Havana with 1,000 names, but not just 1,000 names, and not just the short mantra, but it was the English translation and the full mantra each time. So we started in the morning. We started in the morning, and it just went on and on and on. And at a certain
point, she was there.
Sorry?
Which names of Shri Mataji were you taking?
I can't remember now.
I think
it was her. I think it was her names.
Wow.
I think it was her names, and the
1,000 names.
And she was there.
Yeah, with her.
She was with her there.
Yeah.
And then she said, "Okay, tea break." So we stopped for a tea break, and we all went out.
In the middle of a Havan.
In the middle of the Havan. So she stopped the Havan and says, "Now we have a tea break," and we stopped. Everyone went off and had tea and biscuits and whatever it was and snacks, and then we all came back and we continued with the Havan. And then as we were doing the Havan, this truck arrived,
huge truck,
delivering all the furniture that she'd ordered for the house, including these sofa beds.
Yeah.
And she said, "Okay, stop the Havan, and all the men go and help unload all the furniture." So we helped unload all the furniture and place it in the castle where it was meant to be, and then came back and continued the Havan, and so this is why I always say there's no need to be precious about protocols, routines. Shri Mataji never was, and but the going back to the sofas, of course, when they arrived, Shri Mataji looked at them and says, "Oh, they're too small." She'd ordered these
not double, like king single, what they call it. So it's a bit single, but a little bit bigger than a single, but smaller than a double.
No, what she'd ordered was bigger. Yeah. She'd ordered actually a proper double.
But
what they delivered was what they call in Italy una piazza e mezza, which is a one and a half.
Yeah.
And so they were quite small. And Shri Mataji was saying they'd made a mistake. But at that stage, they'd arrived and so on. And we said, oh, Shri Mataji, it's fine, it's fine. She wanted to send them all back, and we said, no, it's fine, Shri Mataji, it's perfect, no, don't worry. And so they stayed. And so we each, each of our rooms, we had one of these sofa beds, and every evening we'd open it up and pull it out, and that's where we'd sleep. But you have to imagine at this stage, Nathalie and I, we had three kids.
No, so, two children.
And
two children.
No, but at this stage it was already, Nilkan was already wasn't born yet. He came later, was it? Okay. So we later on had three. We were still in the room when Nilkan arrived.
Yeah.
And so, and you had these, I don't know if you've seen the rooms in Kabbalah, but they're small, And once you've opened the bed and you've got a chest of drawers, that's it. There's barely room to move. And so, we would open it up. Nathalie, I remember you were pregnant of Nilkan, that's right. Me, who was quite bulky, and
at least it was warm.
At least it was warm, and and then the other two kids, and then eventually when Nilkan did arrive, and and Shri Mataji, one day she kind of asked, because she was always, she was always keeping informed about how things were, how is everyone, how are they doing, this and the other, and she asked about us. And when she found out that we were living with three kids in this room on this small little bed, and she said, "Oh no, you can't be doing that." So she arranged for us to go to another room downstairs, a much bigger
huge
room. And
where the meditation room is now.
Yeah, where the meditation room is now. Where the meditation room is now was actually two rooms.
Yeah.
And we were on one side, and Sandra in those days, later on
Rosario, yeah.
And she told us to buy.
She says, buy the biggest bed you can find.
We've lost him. We've lost him. He's gone.
Me too.
Slowly.
Hi there.
Hi, sorry, the signal dropped.
Yeah, no worries. And so she said, buy the biggest bed you can find. So we bought a big bed. And in fact, we fitted in it, all five of us, because the children would often come into our beds. You know how small children are. So we all fitted into that. So
sorry to take you back, Nathalie, to the 1.5 bed. So you opened up and all of you would be on that.
Well, basically, so I remember when we moved to the castle, she had told us, she said, just bring the essential. As she told us, and so we had this tiny little wardrobe, and then this sofa bed, which is 1.5, and then of course a small cot for each of our children.
Sorry, are you recording again?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
So and then I think Shri Mataji was talking, I think, to Sandeep. She was asking, how is everyone? Are they comfortable? Are they okay? And so this person must have, Sandeep must have told her in which room everyone was, and this and that. And then that's when, as Robert says, she said, no, that room is too small for 5 people. So she asked us, she told us, you can go to the room downstairs, which is a very big room. And then and she said, make sure you buy a big bed.
So we got this huge great king size thing.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think, but then at the same time, she also decided, might be a good idea to have a children's dorm in the mezzanine where all the children sleep together.
When they were a bit bigger.
When they were a bit bigger, yeah. And that was nice.
Which actually was
How old were they then when this mezzanine children's dorm?
Well,
3, 4.
Yeah, they were small. 4. I mean, because
our children were 3, 4. 17 children.
Basically, our oldest Maharani, and then there was also Victor and Purana, and they had who had Naveen, or not Naveen, so Leo, who were the kind of same age, and they were the oldest kids. So they were, so they were the first to reach the age where they need to start going to school or nursery school, And so, the question came as to whether or not to send them to Rome.
Yeah.
And Shri Mataji said, no, send them to the local school.
The local nursery.
So not Rome ashram, but local school.
Yeah. Local nursery.
Because there was a Rome ashram, like Garutan's Sorry, there was a school in Ramashram like we have in Borotin, isn't it? At that
Yeah.
time?
Yeah, exactly. So prior to Boroton, there was the Rome Ashram, which functioned as a kind of Boroton type school. Yeah, and the but she said no, send them to the local school, and because she was very keen to support the village,
and the integration as well.
I mean, she gave them money. She gave them money.
Donations.
I think she gave money. Did she give money to sort of to buy a new cinema screen or something? A cinema.
They had that like this little sort of what do you call it? Like a
theatre.
Little theatre, town hall with a function room where they would have parties sometimes,
and they also had an old
projector.
And I think she paid for them to buy a new projector.
Yeah, no.
And several
la sala Proloco.
Yeah, the Proloco. Yeah, she gave money to the Proloco. So the Proloco was it's a kind of like a local organization for the community.
Yeah.
And she would sort of give them money and support
community hall. Yeah.
She's very keen to support the local community, and part of that was sending the kids, and perhaps that was also the kind of the first germ or the first seed of the Kabbalah school. I don't know.
Yeah,
but it's true. She's very keen to support the local community, and I remember like we wanted to. Mother loved ice cream. And we wanted to buy an ice cream maker and make the ice cream in at home in the castle. And she says, no, don't. She says, because, until then we'd been buying the ice cream from the village, And she said, no, they'll feel bad if you stop buying it from them. No, don't get the machine. She said, just continue buying it, from the people in the village. It's important. Otherwise, they'll feel bad,
Yeah.
She said, like, yeah. It's
for everyone, isn't it? Regardless.
I don't know if they still do that. I remember when I was working for the foundation, we would occasionally give donations as well to kind of continue in that tradition. Not huge amounts, but we give some donations, just to continue in that tradition that Shri Mataji started, But in the end, she told us. So I think
a
year or two, they'd been. No, I think only a year they'd been there.
Yeah.
And I think when the next generation of kids were ready to start, so for example, Lakshmi never went to Kabbalah school.
Yes, she did.
She did.
I remember with her sari. She would always wear a little sari.
Okay, so must have been. So it must have been what?
To walk down the hill, she'd wear a little sari. Those children's saris.
Yes.
Put on her little sari, walk down, arrive at the school, take off the sari, and in Italy, children wear like little aprons. It's kind of white aprons over their clothes. So she would always wear her sari to go down.
Sweet.
So it must be more than a year then.
Yeah, because then also Shri Mataji said, send them after the Ganesha Puja.
Yes.
And she asked for us to do a play on the story of Shri Ganesha for the Ganesha Puja. So all the children in the castle were part of that play.
Yeah,
wow.
And
then they went to Ramashram after the play. Yeah.
But I think because she was saying, I think she got she I think
looked at the curriculum of the school.
Yeah, I mean, I remember. I don't know whether she commented on this, but what I do remember is our kids coming back using sort of language which they would never have heard it from us or in the castle at all. And I remember going down to the school and speaking to the teacher and saying, look, please, if they speak like this, correct them, and this is, and she was saying, look, I'm really sorry, but I can't, because, this is the language that people speak here. That's how they speak at home. And if I can't correct these kids if that's how they're being taught at home. And
parents will get angry.
Parents will get angry,
if I correct their children.
And I remember that feeling, oh God, and it was around that time when Shri Mataji kind of, I don't think Shri Mataji referenced that specifically, but I'm sure it had something to do with that. I mean, they were going to that school, they were being exposed in a way to things that Rome Ashram would have protected.
To the cemetery once, I remember.
That's right, yeah.
They took me to the cemetery, and we, because that's a tradition,
Yeah, they
part of a Christian religion, and we told the police, can you not take them? And says, but the children have to learn about the facts of life, and death is part of life. And we said, yes, but we don't want you to take small children to the cemetery.
But they did anyway, and because they couldn't understand what was wrong with them.
Yeah.
And so yeah, but so eventually, after a couple of years, she said no, send them to Rome.
Yeah, after a year or 2 years, yeah.
Yeah.
She specifically said, yeah.
But she was always had her attention on the kids, always watching them very closely, asking about them. With our kids, when she sent our, we sent our kids then to India, and we had three. I mean, we certainly couldn't afford to send three, but she's so keen that they should go that she gave all our kids a scholarship to go to India. And then later on, when I'd set up my own school, our own business, and when we were a bit more established, she called us and said, "Okay, now that you're a bit more established, you can now start paying for one of your kids," and so which we did, and so she followed everything very, very kind of closely, and she knew everything about what everyone was doing, and and that was such a beautiful, reassuring place to be, to know that she was always, watching after you, watching over you, monitoring your decisions, and yeah, it was a beautiful situation to be in. Yeah.
Did she allow you to sort of make some mistakes, and then how did you realize it? Because it's, to us now, it is like it is our connection on a day-to-day basis, but it's so intangible and internal. But back then, the little details that Shri sort of, I mean, you can't even imagine, isn't it, how she's looking after and advising and taking care of things. Is there anything that you remember where you sort of thought, oh, good that mother said, and otherwise something would have happened, or any such moment that you remember?
I think what I learned through direct experience is how easy it is, I mean, of course she let you make mistakes. She never said, whatever she said or asked you, there was always a way out. And and the way out was, it could be that you were allowed to say no, and she was allowed to say no sometimes, or you had to be so attentive to really capture what was really she meant or wanted. And it was so easy to miss if you were not absolutely there. And of course, we missed it lots of times. I think last time I gave you lots of examples of how I missed it. But I remember, the one in particular. I mean, you will have heard, I'm sure, the story about, and I referenced it when I was in the last part. When we were talking about it, was when Shri Mataji was looking for Gabella, before she found Gabella, she found this Castello San Giorgio, and she always, in some of her talks, she mentions this. She says, "I had 5 egos sitting on my head, pushing me to buy that castle. I didn't want it, and now, when she would say that, I'd be that, in my head, okay, 1, 2, I can count the people, I can count, but what about the 5th? Who's the 5th? And then I was on one occasion, I was in Shri Mataji's apartments with her, and there was a group of people. She was talking later. Yeah, several years. It is a long time afterwards, and she was talking again about this. She was, and to all of us, and I was sitting by the side of her, and she mentioned the 5 egos, and I was counting 1, 2. I know who the fourth is, but who's the 5th? And she just looked over and she said, "This is all in my head." And she looked over and says, "It's you." And I mean, it was, a shocker, and because I'd actually had, I mean, there are people who are very much involved in the whole process and close to Shri Mataji at that time. I had some involvement. If you remember, I told the story about reporting on the work being done in that castle. And of course, on that occasion, she was asking me, "Do you like the castle?" And in my mind, this was the castle that Shri Mataji wanted, and I was saying yes. And I wasn't really reflecting whether I liked it or not. I just said what I thought she wanted. And I think that's a lesson on innocence, really. I mean, it's when you're a Shri Mataji, you have to be authentic. You can't be artificial.
Genuine.
But so I was being really, fantastic, and this, that, and the other, and but somehow, I was imposing. I was part of that group imposing upon her. I wasn't really listening, and even to this day, it baffles me. I remember when Shri Mataji came to Italy. It was for the Guru Puja of that year, 91. Now, we had no idea that she was going to do the puja in Cabela. We had a half an idea that she was looking for a house. We didn't know what kind of house. We just thought a house for her and CP. So we'd already organized the puja. You plan in advance for these things. So we'd found this campsite. We hired a tent, a huge great marquee. We'd organized the caterers. We'd got the audio equipment hired, and so on and so forth. And all of this was set up. And when Shri Mataji arrived in Italy, it was, Guru Puja was imminent. It was a matter of a month away or something.
Yeah.
And so when she arrived, she slowly started dismantling all our plans. Because I remember when she we spoke to her about the campsite that we'd found, and she didn't like the fact that we didn't have exclusive use of that campsite. It would have been us, but then there would have been other people as well. So she said, "No, you can't do that." And then she said, "What about the marquee?" And we were hiring it, and of course it was quite expensive. She said, "No," and she said we need to buy our own, and she got in touch with the Roman Sahaja Yogis, and through the Roman Sahaja Yogis, she'd organized to buy this big circus tent, if you remember, which in the early days in Cabela we used, which she bought, at a sort of rock bottom price, and then for the catering, she said, "No, we need to do the cooking," and that's when she started putting together this team of women, led by, I think Marla was one of the key ones, this Austrian Sahaja Yogini from India.
Yeah.
And
they did it for many
and she set up that team for many, many years of Indian ladies who came and cooked every time for the pujas.
Shri Mataji decided the menu.
Yeah, and she decided
every detail for every single puja, for every breakfast, lunch, and dinner. She decided exactly what needed to be cooked.
But even the backdrop, she would decide.
Yeah.
She'd be involved in the decoration of the backdrop. And and it was never simple. You would think, you got thousands of people, let's do a simple menu. No, it had to be incredible. It was for Shri Mataji Puja, it was a celebration.
So lots of meat.
It was an event.
Very, very, very rich, very lavish.
Yeah. And so, everyone would be trying to simplify it, and every time you try and simplify it, she'd make it even more lavish. And so she basically dismantled every part of our organization. We had no idea what the plan was, and eventually Cabela was found, and Cabela was found literally a matter of days before the Guru Puja. You have to imagine that. And within days, she got the marquee set and organized everything, the kitchens, cooking at the back of the castle, and all of this it was a matter of days, And
she insisted on moving into the castle immediately as well. She said, "I'll even sleep on the floor.
Yeah,
I don't mind. I don't care." I mean, literally.
Yeah, she wanted to get out of Milan.
And
she literally moved in the next day. And but I remember there was one thing. Now I was kind of very involved in the kind of, I was young, very involved in the sort of, in the sort of Sahaja Yoga, the managing Sahaja Yoga. I wasn't the leader, but I was very much in the team of people who, did everything and organized everything. Certainly, I was very involved in the organization of the puja. And um, and of course, Shri Mataji had dismantled absolutely everything that we had organized, and everything, and she had organized everything. And that was, and I don't think I realized it at the time, but I think, that's your ego has to manage that, because we'd organized the same, and she'd just taken it all down, dismantled it all. And I remember the last thing, and of course I wasn't thinking that, but I mean, at a deeper level, that's what was going on, I'm sure, And I remember I had one last task. It was Shimaji was already had to set herself up in Palazzo Doria. I think it was the Friday evening or maybe the Thursday. I had to pick up. I had this little red Fiat Panda from work, I remember, and I had to go and pick up the audio equipment and take it to Cabela. And as I was on my way to do this, I got this phone call and saying, no, Shimataji's cancelled all of that, and she's made her own arrangements. And I think she'd got stuff to come from Austria or something. I can't remember exactly how there was equipment that she used to take around India or something, and she'd organized all of that to come across, And and I remember driving down the motorway, going to Cabela in this little red Panda. And and at a certain point, and remember, this was on the back of that story I told you last time, where Shimataji had completely dismantled me, following, the cleaning of the castle of San Giorgio, and I just burst into tears. I was just in the car driving, and I just burst into tears, and I don't know why, and it just uncontrollably just driving down the motorway, and somehow something cleared, and by the time I got to Cabela, I was just completely blissed out and was able to kind of enjoy everything, But and so, reflecting back, because I've always asked myself, because where did that come from? Why was I the fifth? And and it's all somehow connected with that. But I think, and I've seen this, so often, because it's easier to see it in other people than it is to see it in yourself.
Absolutely.
Is how easy it is to just force yourself upon Shri Mataji, force your ideas, your desires, your aspirations onto Shri Mataji, rather than just be silent and just listen and really, reflect what she wants, And so, yes, you ask whether she allows you to make mistakes. Yes, she does. She allows you to make very big mistakes sometimes, And can take a long time to work out what the mistake was, and to and I'm sure there's lots of mistakes that I made that I didn't even notice, but that's compensated for by the fact, the moments you have when you really are, because when you are surrendered, it's just that bliss.
That's it.
So.
Yes. Oh, that's very, very nice of you. Very kind of you to share such a personal moment of what shall we say? Well, almost an acknowledgement of where the subtle ego, how subtle the ego can be. And although, we think there is no ego, but there is that ego that only Shri Mataji recognizes. And then when it leaves, the relief felt and the bliss and joy as well. So thanks for sharing that. That's amazing. Now, that Guru Puja in 1991 in Cabela, was it?
Yeah.
Very, very special. And now you've been at the Guru Puja 2026.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So you've seen all those changes and movements, all the transformations and all the behind the scenes, in front of the scenes for the puja and beyond. How does it feel from a Sahaja Yogi's perspective? Because of course Shri Mataji is the doer; she's doing it all. when you see from 1991 to 2026, what was it like? Can you share with us, please, Nathalie and Robert?
What you mean, the evolution?
Yes.
Well, I mean, from a practical point of view, when the first pujas with Shri Mataji, we were up to sometimes 3,000 people,
Wow.
3,000 yogis, and so as Robert said, we were doing everything ourselves. So we were doing the catering, we looking after the musicians as well that came, looking after Shri Mataji's family. I think the first few pujas we actually cooked at the castle.
Yeah.
The ground floor of the castle, the kitchen, which wasn't even a real proper kitchen, to be honest.
No, the first year, that first group puja was actually, the bridge going into Shri Mataji's apartment. That was just a mud bridge. I mean, it was just
wasn't a proper.
And Shri Mataji did all the cooking there. She came out of her apartment, and she cooked on that bridge. We put up fires on the bridge, and she cooked on that bridge.
We cooked very spicy food. I remember, like really spicy. Very spicy food.
But then in following years, we moved it downstairs to the kitchen,
and then the trucks would come and bring these huge big pots of food, because it was near the river. And then there was some point where the tent was set up near the castle as well, where the cars park, sort of down the drive.
There's a big flat area that used to be
when first building the hangar, basically.
First the tent, and then first she built the hangar there, and then the first hangar, that's actually same hangar, was originally built up by the castle. And
dismantled.
And it was subsequently dismantled piece by piece and rebuilt down where it is now. So it was originally, for several years, it was actually up on that. I don't know if as you come down the back road to the castle, come down the gate, and then you come down this turn, and there's a long straight bit going down towards the castle. Just at the end of that long straight bit, before the curve, there's a big flat area. That's where the hangar was. So first the tent. So the very first year in 1991, it was actually on the riverbed.
Exactly, near the river, down in the village with this tent.
As you walk right at the end of as you come into the square, where the bridge is. The bridge is.
Yes, I know where the bridge.
On the other side of the bridge,
yes,
on the riverbed, that's where the tent was.
Wow.
And in that very first year. And the toilets was just out in nature. There were no toilets. So it was and no showers. It was river. Mother said go down to the river and wash in the river. So it was very, very, very basic, But I remember the villagers being amazed because I got to know Piazzale very well, the mayor. This mayor I was talking about, because when I was working for the foundation, I got to know him very well, even before that. And he was saying how everyone was just amazed how, because of course he had these 1,000 people descend on Cabela, this little village, who was a sleepy little village.
It was quite dilapidated from the early photos that we see.
It was very dilapidated. And then they left, and there was no mess.
Wow.
And because occasionally you would have these events in Cabela, non-Sahaja events,
the summer,
and people would get drunk, they'd make a mess, and the villagers were just amazed that this army of Sahaja Yogis descended and then left, and it was as if they were never there, and they couldn't believe it, Wow. And but it was very, very basic. So from that, and then she moved up to the tent went up on that space by the castle. That became the hangar. Then the hangar, she bought the land down in Ciminiera. Not Ciminiera, Chiapetti, sorry, that's where Albera is, where it is now. And then she had it rebuilt there,
And then she bought Centrassi as well, and that's where we used to where all the musicians that we used to invite would stay, and someone would cook for them there, look after them there.
Wow.
And all the puja gifts as well would be kept there.
But I think what's really important is that everything was very basic, but slowly things became more
proper bathrooms, proper toilets.
And Shri Mataji never, she never intended us to go through hardship for hardship's sake. You know, she
Yeah.
was always working to improve things.
Yeah.
She always wanted things to be better, you know, better toilets, better kitchens, better everything, better sleeping. She didn't want people to be uncomfortable or suffer or live in basic conditions for its own sake.
Yeah.
She expected us to embrace that.
If that was the situation.
If that was the situation.
With a choice, yeah.
But not just, you know, I've heard, you hear some people say, oh, we no longer have those toilets in the ground. It's not Sahaj. You know?
Yeah.
Absolute nonsense. You know, that's not the point at all. You know? And but I remember in that regard, there's a story. It's not really my story, but I tell it because I don't think the person themselves would ever tell it.
Oh.
And I used to tell this story to the volunteers. So when I was the managing the foundation, we'd have loads. We'd have, you know, anything up to 80 volunteers at the castle at any time, and yeah, they'd have to put up with quite a lot because, you know, they'd sleeping one on top of each other. There was a lot of work to be done.
Cleaning toilets, cleaning bathrooms,
Yeah.
cleaning, cooking,
Massive
rubbing.
spaces.
Not very glamorous, as
Yeah.
you know, not just looking after Shimaji's kitchen or doing her laundry. It was
Yeah.
the whole castle.
I think
everything.
People would come with the hope that they'd be meditating with Shri Mataji in the morning and cooking in her kitchen and serving her food. That it wasn't. You know, a few privileged people got that opportunity. And we try and rotate.
Yeah, exactly. So
But,
you did a bit of everything.
But you'd also be cleaning the toilets.
Yeah.
You know, serving the food for 50 people or whatever it is, you know.
Yeah.
And so, and I would tell this story about this yogini, and she was a successful, professionally very successful. So, very sort of elegant, you know, very successful in his business, you know, maybe quite right-sided in that sense, you know, not mean that in a negative way, but, you know, that kind of a person, very kind of dynamic, very, used to having money, used to being able to spend money and so on and so forth. And she went to India on tour and she put her name on the marriage list. And Shri Mataji arranged her marriage, and she arranged her marriage with this very, very simple Indian gentleman from the villages. So, you know, it couldn't be more, you know, further removed from her kind of reality. You know? And, you know, so her being this very successful, sophisticated, you know, well-off woman, married to someone who was basically a farmer, you know, in the village somewhere. And Shri Mataji said to her, you know, before she went back to Europe, she says, you know, you need to go and visit his family in the village, you know. And so she went to the village, and of course, it's incredibly simple, you know. I mean, you know better than I do.
Yes.
But she was received with incredible love and incredible hospitality by her family, you know, the family of her husband, and, you know, who treated her like a kind of goddess, you know. But she was living, you know, in incredibly basic conditions, you know, and which would have been a real eye-opener for her, I think, you know. And so when she came back from that, Shri called to see her and asked her, and Shri was telling the story. I mean, I'm telling the story because Shri was telling me the story, and not just me, just a group of us. And she was asking her, you know, and she was testing her, you know, she was saying, well, how was it, you know? And, you know, because she knew that it would have been really tough for someone like that to experience something like that. You know? And so, and this lady was saying, Sahaja Yogini was saying, oh, you know, it was just amazing. The love that they poured over me was just unbelievable. And so Shri was saying, yes, but what about the toilets, you know? And so she went, yes, but yeah, but you know, the food they gave me, they were just lavishing me with this, and you know, they gave me gifts and this and that. Yeah, but you know, wasn't it a bit dirty, you know? And no, Shri not really, because you know, they this, and then she just kept going back to the fact that they treated her so beautifully and were so hospitable and so loving and so kind to her, you know. And Shri Mataji was saying, you know, look at the caliber of that person. You know, she just didn't notice any of that, you know. All she noticed was the love, you know. And she said, if all the Sahaja Yogis were like that, my job would be done.
Wow.
And you know, and I always told that stories to the volunteers, you know,
Yes.
because you know they had to put up with a lot, you know, they really had to put up with a lot. But you know, and you could only survive in Kabbalah if you focused on the love, you know.
Yeah.
Even today, I would say, even today, even despite, you know, Kabbalah is a cauldron, you know, it's got amazing vibrations. We went this weekend, and it's so easy to forget how powerfully the presence of Shri Mataji was felt there, you know. But
explosion of
for that
vibration.
reason, it's also a place where if you got something to work through, you'll have to work through it if you're there, you know. And so if you're in Kabbalah, and certainly if you're working in Kabbalah, if you're part of the Kabbalah community, you've got to remember the love. You've got to remember the Shri Mataji's vibrations. You've got to remember Shri Mataji. If you forget that, you can very easily get lost, you know. And that's very much the experience of living in Kabbalah. It was a huge challenge. I mean, you were constantly being challenged. You were being in all kinds of ways. It was tough.
Yeah.
You know, we were, if you imagine, for 10 years, I mean, I spent 3 hours getting to work and 3 hours coming back because I worked in Turin. And the other people, so George, Alberto, Sandeep, Fimba, Victor, they worked in Milan, and that was also 3 hours.
Wow.
So we would all
6 hours every day, yeah, of travel.
And you know, we did that for 10 years, and you did because of Shri Mataji. I mean, in the summer, I remember we'd come back, and I'd go and sit on the bridge outside her room, and I'd just sit there for half an hour and meditate, and that's all you needed to just recover from that whole day, you know. And so it was. I mean, you know, there were you had to face stuff. You had it wasn't just easy like that. But if you could get cut through all of that and just enjoy the vibrations, enjoy Shri Mataji, enjoy the love, it was such a beautiful place. The collectivity there was so beautiful. Remember, it was, you know, the people we live with are the people that were bonded to for life, you know, those people we lived with then, you know. Yeah. And but yes, I mean that's and Kabbalah's like that still today, I believe. Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
amazing.
there's, you know, and to give you another example, in one of the things we'd have to do in those first early years is Shri Mataji, when she went to India over the winter, she asked us. So there was one guy called Arnaldo who she called to be the kind of guard of the palace of the
security guard,
and he would have to sleep every night in her apartment. So now you have to. You're talking about her apartments. There's no heating at all. Freezing cold winters, and every single night he would sleep in those apartments in the freezing cold because Shri Mataji asked him to.
10 sleeping bags.
and the rest of us, there was maybe 6 of us men who were going to work every day.
Yeah.
But at night we had to take it in turns to sleep with him. So one night, more or less one night a week.
2 people, yeah.
So there'd always be 2 people up there. And this was for 1 year. I don't know why particularly that year, but she said, you know, there needs to be a guard need to be guarding my apartments at night. And it was, I mean, literally I'd go with 2 sleeping bags, woolly hats, jump. It's never been so cold in my
Very
life.
cold, yes.
Below zero.
Yeah.
They
Oh,
went
yeah.
below zero, definitely. Oh yeah.
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 And
So
Thick
that
walls.
Shri was in winter there then, because over winter
No,
normally she would go
no,
to.
she was in India.
she used to go to India.
That's why
Oh,
when
so
she went to India,
Shri was in India while
she
you
asked them
and Aldo
to,
and other men were
yeah,
taking turns.
yes.
Yeah, this is when she was.
To her,
Yeah, when
she would leave in November.
Yes.
Yeah.
and
Wow.
so she
Right, beginning December sometimes.
and she'd
yeah.
come back for the summer.
April.
Yeah, just after Easter.
Yeah, for the
So
East.
when you
Yeah.
so Shri Mataji's apartment, so the Arnaldo and the gentleman the yogi sleeping with them would be in what is the sitting room of Shri Mataji now?
Yeah, we would just sleep on the floor in the sitting
Yeah.
room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
But it's
part,
extremely cold, even with those thick walls.
below zero.
And it's so much snow and everything in the winters.
Yeah. Well, you have to. I mean, the thick walls.
Yeah.
They're
Exactly.
once you've heated it up and the walls heat up a bit, it's fine. But
there's no heating.
There'd never been any heating.
So they retained all the cold.
Yes.
Which is nice in summer.
Yeah.
Yes.
But
Not so in winter, gosh.
yeah.
So that's tapasya in itself, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, and
But it
was fun because we were in our 20s, we were young. It was like an adventure. That's how you had to approach it as well,
So
and
this
we were
was
together the first year. Yeah, there was one.
1992
Sorry?
then. Sorry. This is 1992 or
91,
92. Yes. So we had one small sitting room in the mezzanine and this tiny little kitchen.
Yes.
And we didn't have hot water running from the tap, so we had to heat up hot water to do the washing up. I mean, I remember if you put your hands under the tap, like it would hurt your bones, that's how cold it was.
Cold. Yeah.
And we had one like wood stove in that living room. Now they'd sort of installed, but we had to go outside and chop wood and find wood to burn,
Yeah.
So it was like, also that was a duty, take turns in chopping wood. Yeah.
But the key thing was fun, I think. Because
Yeah,
I remember
exactly
when Shri Mataji, I can't remember what year it was, where the first year Shri Mataji started doing marriages in Kabbalah. Because up until then, they'd always been done in India. No?
Oh, yeah.
And so I can't remember what year it was, but one of the years Shri Mataji decided that we were going to do the marriages
at the Ganesh Puja.
Ganesh or Krishna, I can't remember which one.
Yeah, Ganesh.
One of the pujas we were going to do the marriages. It was chaos. I mean, because we had no experience of hosting these marriages at all. So I remember Nalgirka came across, but it was just total pandemonium, because the puja plus the marriages and all the things that go with that, and
resources,
and we were running around like headless chickens. It was. And it was chaotic, and how anyone actually got married to the right person, I had no idea, and but I remember afterwards we were up with Shri Mataji in her apartments, and we were kind of reflecting on it, and she was saying what a mess it had all been, and and she was saying, I don't know if we should do this again, and she's saying, should we do this again, And I remember we said, well, it's true, Shri Mataji, but it was such fun. And which it was. It was pandemonium, but fun, And it was just so joyful, the whole thing, And as the marriages always are. And and Shri Mataji said, yes, it's fun. That's it. And so she continued doing them. And
that's exactly what she said that first year when we moved into the castle in 91, when we all moved in, and so at the beginning of December she left for India, and when we were saying goodbye, we thought, okay, she's going to say some important things about how to live, or about, she only said one sentence. She said, have fun. That's all she said. And she said, she got into the car, she looked at us and said, make sure you have fun living here.
Yeah.
That's what she said.
She's frozen, I think.
Is it still recording?
I have no idea. Better behave.
Talking of fun?
Better behave. Just in case it is recording. Yeah, she's off now.
Not recording?
Yeah, she's Hello.
Sorry about that. I don't know what's going on. The dogs have gone out for a walk, but the signal still keeps dropping.
No problem.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Please,
So, did you get that bit with about fun? It was all about fun.
please repeat it because I think the recording goes on, but just in case, if you
I don't know what part we cut. So I was just finishing
yeah,
that story about the marriages and how
marriages
she was saying,
continued, yes.
because we were saying how much fun it was, and she managed to. That's it. That's the point. And so she decided that she would continue with the marriages. But then Natalie was saying that also when um, she left that first time for India, the first year that we were started living in the castle before she left, her message was have fun, have fun, enjoy yourselves, and but yeah, I also wanted to just one last story about Shri Mataji's feet. I was traveling with her because I mean it was such an important thing for me also for my meditation actually because um, I was I mean it started off quite comically because I was on the plane with her and I was sitting next to her and um, and they served us the meal and it was beef. It was this big juicy beef steak with some rice and some vegetables, And now I'm Argentine. I'm half Argentine, so a big juicy beef steak for me is like my dream. And so uh, so I was sitting there and I was looking at Shri Mataji and to see what she was doing, with her beef steak, and I was kind of poking at mine and eating a bit of a rice and poking at the vegetables a bit, and Shri Mataji sort of looked at me and she says, just eat it. She says, just enjoy it. And, so she didn't. But but she said, just eat it, just enjoy, if you want to eat it, And which of course I did. And but and actually on another occasion, it's a very similar story. I was sitting. This is another flight, and I was sitting on the plane, and Shri Mataji was in the aisle seat, and there was a yogi in the middle seat, and then I was sitting by the window. And again, they just served us our food, and they come around with the tea or coffee, and they came around first with the coffee, and they said, "Would you like some coffee?" And I love coffee, So I said, "Yeah, I'll have some coffee, thank you." So I took some coffee, and and then and I was just taking it up to my mouth like this. And they asked the guy sitting next to me, the yogi sitting next to me, "Would you like some coffee?" And he went, no, 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 like this. And I thought, oh God,
Bad for my liver.
They put my coffee down like this. And then they offered it to Shri Mataji, and Shri Mataji also declined.
But because she didn't like coffee.
She didn't like coffee.
She didn't like
she never drank because of the flavor. Like she didn't like the flavor. Yeah.
So then I thought, well, I've got the coffee now. I may as well drink it. I was bringing the coffee up to my mouth, and the guy sitting next to me, Shri Mataji, coffee is a poison. It is going to go out of evolution like this. And I thought, oh God, I've put my coffee down.
again.
And, yeah. And he was going on about how coffee was a poison for the liver, and it was the plant was gonna go out of evolution because of this, and so on and so on. And we should never drink coffee. And Shri Mataji looked at this guy and says, yeah, you're right. You should never drink coffee because you've got a bad liver. But Robert, he can drink coffee.
Wow. If you needed approval, there you are.
Unfortunately, because then I've never been able to put down a cup of coffee in my life, I wish but ever since then. But anyway, so all these ideas we have about what we should eat and shouldn't eat and drink and that,
just common sense.
Relax a little bit, in moderation, but relax. But anyway, when we were talking about when she was, you told me to eat my beef. I ate my beef, and they came and they took the tables away. They took the trays away, and we put up our tables. And when they put up the tables, Shri Mataji was sitting there, and she's just looking down at her feet, and she started talking about her feet to me, and she was talking to them like they were her children. And she was saying, oh, look at them, look how hard they work and how much they have to put up with, and I owe so much to them. And talking in this way, and in a very, very kind of compassionate way. It's so hard to describe, as if she was talking about her children, but also grateful for all the work they've done and all their dedication, and it was just such a mind-blowing thing to hear, that to hear the goddess talking about her feet in that way, and really, I mean, at the moment I was just so befuddled by it. It just sent me totally thoughtless, and just looking at her feet, and just as she spoke in this way about her feet, and she told me, says, just look at them, and I was just looking at her feet and just in beautiful meditation, and ever since then, one of the things I'll do in my meditations is I remember that, and so and in my meditation I'll take Shri Mataji's feet, and I'll just give them the spa treatment, I'll kind of give them all the wash them, massage them, give some beautiful scented oils, and and then dry them down, rub them down, decorate them, imagine them with beautiful jewelry I can possibly imagine, decorate them with the anklets and toe rings, and then lay them on the sort of beautiful sheepskin carpet, and then offer the flowers, and just really trying to express that sort of giving them that spa treatment because they deserve it, and it just propels me into meditation every single time, just that attitude, and I think, and for me that was such an important thing of just her feet, how much they've done, how much they've worked for us, and
relentlessly,
it's a beautiful, beautiful experience.
Amazing. That's incredible, and incredible that you do give the spa treatment, because my God, we owe so much, everything actually, isn't it? If Shamashi hadn't taken this incarnation and worked so hard for all of us. I mean, she's the only incarnation who's worked all across East and West, not just one country or a few, but everywhere, isn't it? To integrate us all and evolve us in ways that were only known to a select few eons ago. And she's made it possible for us to enjoy, have fun, and evolve spiritually. I mean, that is just so beautiful, and we are ever so grateful. Words aren't adequate, isn't it, to express the gratitude and the joy and everything she has given us and bestowed us with. It's very nice how we started this part 2 of you both sharing that photo of Shri Mataji from Voltaire. Is there any particular incident from that time that you might like to share?
Isn't Volterra where the famous for the marble, Robert, as well? Wasn't she looking for marble to buy marble? Or...
Yeah, I mean, she definitely bought marble there because I remember
it's famous.
I don't know if it was Volterra or some, because I remember once driving a van to Shuddhi camps full of marble that she bought it was for the Guru Puja of 1987, and
that year when she told us to get married.
Yeah, that was the year when that story I was telling you about taking the jewelry down to Wales.
Yes.
I actually went to that puja, driving this van through Europe full of marble, together with who was it? He was this French yogi, French Swiss yogi. I haven't seen him for a long time. Anyway, yeah. So yes, I mean she definitely bought marble from there, but I don't know if it was Volterra or somewhere else. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And so where did you guys get married? Because Kabela wasn't a venue.
Ganapatipule.
Ganapatipule.
January 88. Yeah.
It was actually, I think it was the first year of Ganapatipule, because before that was Bordi.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think it was, if not the first year, it was the second year of Ganapatipule. Yeah. Because before, up until then, the marriages had always been in Bordi.
But going back, that reminds me of our marriage, like in Ganapatipule, going back to the mother saying that, it's important to have fun and enjoy whatever. But I was at you, the situation. I mean, I remember when we got married, Robert ended up with 2 mothers-in-law. First of all, I don't know. Did you tell the story?
I don't know if I told this last time. Maybe, probably not.
Please share.
I mean, it's not really, but it's just a funny story.
Yeah.
So when as I arrived, when the groom arrives, the mother-in-law is meant to do the arti to the groom, and then accompanies him to the fire where the bride is waiting, and was it like that? Yeah, would it be? Yeah, you would be waiting.
Mom didn't realize. Mom didn't realize they had to.
So basically, it was pandemonium as usual, masses of people everywhere. And Natalie's mother was actually there, as my mother-in-law, but she wasn't there when I arrived. So they just took this Indian lady who spoke barely any English, no English at all.
She's actually local.
I think she was local. Yeah. And she said, and you be the mother-in-law. So she did the arti to me and accompanied me to the fire. And then I think then of course the sheet comes down and then you come to the fire and that's when your mother arrived. and then so my mother-in-law says to this lady, yeah, I think there was something the mother-in-law had to do, in the part of the ceremony, and so Patricia started doing all this Indian the Indian lady started sitting down and started doing it, and then so Patricia says, no, but I'm the mother-in-law, I have to do it. And so this Indian lady, of course, didn't understand because she didn't speak English and didn't understand who she really was. She says, no, I'm the mother-in-law. And so Patricia says, no, I'm the mother-in-law. This is my daughter. She says, no. I did the arti. I'm the mother-in-law. So and you could see Patricia was getting more and more frustrated, and they were about to have this huge great argument. I'm the real mother-in-law. And Shri Mataji at this stage was already started the kind of ceremony on the stage, because at this point there's certain mantras that need to be said, So I just said, look, I'll just have 2 mother-in-laws, So ever since I've had 2 mother-in-laws.
But in fact, and then during the ceremony, the smoke was blowing in my face, and so how the brides, we have all the decoration, the little dots. So one side of my face, all these dots were completely smudged, and one side was perfect, and so after, I don't know how I realized, and you know, at the end of the ceremony, Shimaji asked for all the couples to go and do namaskar at her feet one by one, and she used to give us these beautiful, you know, silver gifts.
Yes.
You know, silver plate, the little thing for, you know, and anyway, beautiful silverware. And so, and I remember, so we went up, and then she looked at me, and she could see that. She says, "So, did you have fun?"
Smudged all over here.
Smudged, two mother-in-laws, you know, like, but that's literally, that's all she said, all she asked. She said, "Did you have fun?" Yeah, and she was laughing, you know, like, "Did you have fun?" So yeah, you know, I always remember that. So just
Incredible.
enjoy. But also I wanted to mention, you know, when the first time I went to India, I was very young. I was
Yes.
15, and you know, it was first time I went to India in 1982. I was 15. I'd only been in Sahaj for, you know, a few months, and you know, there was no other children, you know, no other young people, and
Right.
also growing up in Belgium as well, the average age was sort
Where
of
did you go to
45.
India then in 1982? Because it's
Yes, well, you know, I remember getting special permission from school,
yeah.
saying that I was going on a spiritual voyage. I said, I said, I'm going on a spiritual journey. I said, and I went to a Catholic school, very nice school, and it was a school where my mom worked as a teacher as well. And it's actually a miracle we got permission, because 6 weeks is a long time.
Yeah.
So, you know, we had 2 weeks for Christmas, and then, you know, but then there's 4 other weeks where you're missing school. And I just thought, maybe if I tell him that it's spiritual, you know, a
Yeah.
journey and a spiritual trip, you know, he might accept, and he might say, wow, go for it, you know. And miraculously, he did. He
Wow.
allowed us to, you know, both my mom as a teacher and me as a student. And
That's exceptional.
yeah,
Didn't Shri Mataji kind of excuse you from certain things because
yes. And in fact, so was, you know, the tour was a typical Indian tour. You know, every 2 days we'd go move on to a different place. And you know, I remember, so I was 15, and I think there was I think Oriel was there as well. I think
Yeah, I was just
Linda,
thinking
she
that
was there.
Linda's
She's younger than
were
me,
there.
even a
Yeah.
couple of years. And then, so, you know, one of the things that you know, Shimaji organized was this conference for doctors and for medical staff. I can't
Right.
remember if it was for Pune, and she said, "Oh, that's boring." Nathalie, she used to call me, you know, no Natalie, Nathalie, she used to call me. And so, you know, she said, "Oh, you shouldn't go. It'd be boring for you. Why don't you go and have a nice ice cream somewhere with you know, with my granddaughter and with Oriel?" So the three of us went into the town and just, you know, had ice cream and went to a nice park, you know,
Oh,
because she
special
thought, she said,
treatment.
too boring for us, you know, to go medical conference, you know.
you were how old, 15?
I was 15, and so although I was a teenager, but you know, in her eyes, I was a child, you know,
Yeah, you
and
always are.
and I was just enjoying, you know, all the
All the
attention.
privileges of being a child. She would pull you in, give you a hug,
Yeah, exactly. You know, hugs and kisses, and you know, little gifts, you know, and
and you would also. I mean, what would always. I remember the gift you gave to her. Which I think anyone would give it, unless you were a child, where you got these rocks.
I painted
And you
them.
painted them as musicians, and then you stuck them together, and you gave it to Shri Mataji. Said, "This is a rock concert."
I mean, it's true. Years later, she said, you know, years later, she said, you know, I always, when I gave her a gift, years later, she said, you know, I always remember that gift you made with your own hands with the little stone. She said, I always remember that. I still have it. You know,
Wow.
she remembered. And I mean, definitely Shimataji was, you know, my constant, you know, growing up in Sahaj as, you know, maybe the only young person. And sometimes, you know, the adults could be quite judgmental, sort of quite strict,
Was it the
very,
story of the
very
scarring or something?
critical. And like, for example, when we used to go to the India tour, Shimaji thought it'd be nice for us to have, to wear saris as well, cotton saris. She says it's nice and cool and you'll feel relaxed and at ease in India. And so there was only a small group of us that first tour. And so she called us one by one and she personally gave us, the saris and the kurtas to the men. And so, she said, so what colors do you like? And I said, oh, Shimaji, whatever you give me, you choose, no problem. So she gave me a red one, a pink one, and then a white one with the border, like that, the ones that she would wear, for programs. And so I was very happy, she'd chosen the colors. And so I remember I was wearing the sari, the white one, and this lady came up to me and she said, "You're not allowed to wear those color saris. It's only for the goddess. It's only for the guru.
How dare you?
How dare you,
That's
wear a
a sari
sari like that,
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, let her just talk, the goddess gave it to me, so it's fine, and
But I think that's,
yeah.
I mean, for me, it was a way in which she kind of gives you that confidence as a child also, because it wasn't easy. I mean, there was other occasions, weren't there, when...
Yes, so I remember it was the end of the tour and my first tour, 6 weeks. And as I said, it was a little bit hard sometimes. It was, people, adults that were like, being very judgmental sometimes, very strict and not very compassionate. And it was the end of the tour, and I'd walked into and found a spot to sleep in this building, and a lady had walked in and told me that I had to give my spot to her. So I had nowhere to sleep. I had nowhere to go, and I can't remember exactly my mom where she was, but so I had nowhere to go, and I was just, and then Shri Mataji arrived, and so everyone was gathering, and I was standing right at the back and thinking, gosh, what am I going to do? I don't know where to go now, and I was actually crying a little bit, and next thing I hear Shri Mataji called Nathalie, like all the way from the front. I was right in the back, and it was pitch dark.
Wow,
And
yes,
she calls out, she says, Nathalie, have you got a spot to sleep? Have you got a place? Do you know where you're going to sleep?
Oh,
And I said, no, Shri Mataji, I don't actually. And then she said, look, there's that bungalow there. You go there very nicely. So she arranged it all for me.
wow.
So always there, always looking after. She knew everything.
Yes, absolutely.
And it was so important because that was, my constant. It was Shri Mataji, and that's all that mattered, her presence.
But I think it's also important
Yeah.
today. I mean, I think because that still happens. I mean, now we're the adults, and I think it's very easy to be judgmental, sometimes be quite harsh with young people and expect too much of them. And and I think it's important to remember that. I mean, our responsibility to give young people. I mean, I don't think, obviously there are maryadas within the collectivity. They have to. Everyone has to sort of understand that. But it's not about that. It's not about
a way of talking as well, and a way of behaving, and a way of dealing with them.
Yeah,
that's the
it's
thing,
about that
as well.
Basic kindness, that basic sort of giving them an opportunity to have a proper experience of Sahaja Yoga, and not be put off before they've had a chance to have a deep experience of Sahaja Yoga, a deep connection with Mother. And that's our responsibility as adults, is, and I don't think we always are successful. And so
I was lucky because Shri Mataji physically was there.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And I used to write her letters as well about, how I felt about Sahaja Yoga, and how I, those early days, I used to send her a letter every week, sort of reporting back about how I felt and how so lucky. Yeah. But yeah, it's true about what you're saying. We have to.
It is so important because now all that connection, and that's the whole point. That it's so nice that you are sharing your golden memories with Shri Mataji in a physical form. Now it's all internal, isn't it? It's how we conduct ourselves and how we meditate, and equally important how we treat the young ones, and especially with Shri
Yes.
Mataji's particular attention on the children, isn't it? As you were saying earlier, her focus on the schools, Dharamshala, Kabbalah, all these places where she wants the children to be nurtured in a way that is more holistic, and that how she wants them to grow up in, isn't it? Did she ever talk to you or mention anything about the higher education of kids, because the children, because we have primary schools
college
and secondary schools. Anything else, or did she have anything to share?
I mean, not really. I mean, I think I mentioned this last time. I'm always a little bit loath to say, because what she said specifically, because it was never like she was giving absolute.
No.
There's a it's about capturing, understanding the essence of,
yes,
But I do remember when I went to work in the school in India, before me, there was a principal called Miss Chitnavis, and we stayed in who was friends with the principal who was there when I was there, who was Mr. Miss Deshpande, and we also stayed in Miss Chitnavis' house in Pune during the holidays.
Because she used to live with her son in America.
Yeah,
yeah,
and so no, the reason I'm pausing because the amazing story where our daughter the other day walked into her, was it the doctor?
Well, because basically Shimaji, when she told us to go to Dharamshala, she said during the holidays, go and stay in Pune and then travel a little bit around the south of India. It's a really nice place to visit. And so we ended up renting Mrs. Chitnavis's apartment in Pune, in Karvenagar. That she wasn't actually there. As I said, she was living and staying with her son in America. But then a month ago, our daughter, our son-in-law, had to go to his dentist here in Greenwich, and so he was a young woman. Yes. And I can't remember how they started talking about India and about, how he was saying, oh, my wife, she went to school in India. And the dentist said, oh, really? She said, how interesting, because my grandmother, used to work at an international school in India. And so my son-in-law says, oh, where? And he says, oh, you wouldn't know it. It's in the middle of nowhere, foothills of the Himalayas. It's in a place called Dharamshala. And he says, Dharamshala. And it turns out that her grandmother is Mrs. Chitnavis.
And Maharani was there.
Maharani was there
when Chitnavis was
Mrs. Chitnavis was the headmistress as well. And I mean, it's just a small world.
Such a small world.
Yeah.
Oh.
But Miss so what Miss Chitnavis told me, because she had a conversation with Shri Mataji about education, and they were deciding on the curriculum for the school in India.
Yes.
And now you'll know better than I do that in India there's one particular curriculum which is very, very, it used to be, at least I think it may have changed, but it used to be very much the top one, which is very, very knowledge based, very, very much very academic, and very sort of focused on getting the points, getting the scores, and Indian kids would go home and then do extra lessons to get the top scores to get into the top universities and all this kind of business.
Yes, that pressure there still.
And I'm sure you know about that.
Yes.
But then there was another, and I can't remember the names of the syllabus, the exam boards now.
It's the ICSC.
ICSC. No, the ICSC is the one they do in is it the ICSC? Anyway, I can't remember.
It's the GCSE equivalent. It's
yes. Equivalent. But then there was another one
CBSE.
Maybe CBSE.
Yeah, that I think
Slight, which they use in Durham. They used to use in Dharamsala. I'm assuming they still do. And
No, sorry, it's ICSE they do.
oh, then it's the
When
ICSE.
we
but
went,
the one they use in
Yeah.
mixed Indian schools, not
Yeah.
Sahaja.
No, but it's definitely the ICSE. But
Yeah.
I mean, leaving that aside, I mean, it doesn't
Yes.
matter which of the boards it was.
No, it's
But
just,
it was, so one of the boards was this very kind of knowledge-based, very, very academically focused, and the one which carries the most status in India.
yeah.
And Shri Mataji says, no, not that one. She said, and she chose this other one, and which was the Cambridge one. I think it must be the CBSE.
This is the ISC.
And she said, and the reason for that is it's more balanced, because yes, there's the academic side, but there's also the whole extracurriculum side. And they get sports, they get crafts, they get art, they get
music,
they get, they learn about nature. And so she was very specific in that choice, and the rationale for that, she gave the rationale for that choice.
Wow.
And it was about the balance. And I think, and that's really the most I can say, So I think, if you're talking about secondary education, Shri Mataji, yeah, she gave certain value to academics, of course, but there had to be the balance. It couldn't just be all about that,
Yeah.
And so
yeah,
it's always in balance, isn't it? Not in one extreme or the other. Always the middle path, and which is amazing.
but she never really spoke about universities or colleges, did she? I mean,
well, no, not really. I mean, she did. When she asked me to go to Australia, it was to help set up a university. So when I was in when we were up in India, we'd been up for about 2.5 years or something, and it was the start of the new year, Shivratri Puja. I don't know if I told you this last time or not, but it was on the stage, and Shri Mataji called both me and the principal on stage at the end after the puja, and it was Shivratri. So after the puja, all the kids were I think we were going to go up to Delhi, do maybe the birthday puja possibly, and then go up to the school, something like that. So she called us up on the stage, and she said to me, I want you to go to Australia. And I always remember this because the principal, and we used to get on very well with Mr. Deshpande. She said to Shri Mataji, no, let him stay further. He's helped us a lot at the school, this, that, and the other. Let him stay at least another year. And I remember Shri Mataji turning to her, being quite firm with her. I was quite surprised how, she was saying, don't be selfish. He has got a family. He has to look after. He now needs to have the chance to go and look after his family. He needs to have a proper job and look after his family and so on. Because of course in India it wasn't like that.
Yes.
And so I wasn't really a volunteer. I was being paid something, but it wasn't very much.
Yes.
And and she was saying that she wanted me to go to Australia to help administer her word. I remember her word was always to administer a Sahaja University that they were setting up there. Wow. And I remember going there as a result, and going to do that, and actually arriving, there was nothing. There was no, and it was based on something that somebody had fairly irresponsibly said to Shri Mataji. But so we ended up doing not doing that, because there was actually no university at all. So, and when Shri Mataji spoke about Kabbalah school, I know for certain she was talking about, she spoke about Kabbalah as primary, secondary, and university. And so she always spoke in very, in those terms. But in terms of the detail of what that should be, she never spoke to me about that.
Okay.
No.
That's good to know. That's great that the stories you have shared behind it and the education of the children, and it's not just education as we know it, because being from India, there's just so much focus on academic. It's not really balanced and it's not sustainable. And thankfully now slowly, everywhere parents are realizing what Mataji has given it to us from the beginning, that you have to be fine, have a good education, but at the same time be good with your hands, be doing things that are creative and useful. So that's very, very good to know, and that there might be a university, Sahaja University, one day.
Maybe one day.
Yeah.
But I mean that puja. Well, another thing I remember specifically about the talk in that puja, because that Shivaratri puja, the year would have been 2002, yeah.
No, just 2003.
2003 would have been 2003, yeah. Shivaratri. And because when I went up to the school in India, one of the things that struck me was how quick the teachers were to hit the children. And I remember one of the first things I did was to put a ban on that, and how difficult it was for some of the Indian teachers to embrace that. Yeah. I mean, in the sense it was so ingrained within them, this idea that children get beaten, and to the point where I had to threaten someone with being sacked unless they just stopped, and put a complete ban on anyone laying even a finger on a single hair of a child, and it was difficult because even Miss Deshpande, as an Indian, as very traditional Indian, it was deeply ingrained, this thing, and I always remember the talk of Shivratri that year. Shri Mataji addressed this, and she gave a huge papach to the Indians about and saying this is the one area where you can learn from Westerners, about how they have to just stop beating the children, and she's very, very kind of tough about that, and I think that's really important to, if you're talking about education, it's really important. It's a really important lesson, because you hear sometimes people say, "Oh, well, mother did say you can give a little tap on the bum of your kid or something when they're little babies." That's kind of the limit, and your kids, not somebody else's. And but it's really important to understand that Shri Mataji was absolutely 100% against anyone laying a finger on children. There's no question of that at all. Physical. That's really important. If you want to know, that's a really important message for education generally, and that I would stake my life on. That was her position.
Yes, and it's great that you've reminded the viewers of how important it is to treat the children with love and care and respect. Thankfully, having grown in India and being brought up in India, I must say Shri Mataji has been very kind in giving me the parents who never actually beat me, or teachers who did that, but it is a phenomena in some places, and it cannot be denied. Hopefully, in time, it's going to reduce and disappear one day, because sometimes it's a consequence of anger, isn't it? When the teacher is upset, angry, and frustrated, and then once that sets in and you start hitting, it's just so much damage to the child psychologically, not just physically, isn't it? So
and I think if I'm not mistaken, I mean, I'm not sure, I might be mistaken, but if my memory serves me correctly, in that talk also she kind of expanded on that to incorporate also beating women. It wasn't just about children, it was also about beating women, and saying how absolutely abhorrent it was, and
domestic violence.
But we need to go and listen to that talk again.
We would put that link with the video so that we can reference it and listen to it and remind ourselves and that the attention goes on the world, because it's not just our children and, you know, the ladies on Sahaja Yoga, but it's a whole wide world that
Oh, it's a worldwide thing,
Shri
definitely.
transform. So that is very nice that you've reminded us of those things, and they're very important, as relevant today as they were back then. But having worked in Sahaja Yoga, I think both Shankarji and I felt that it was really, really a blessing, as you say, feeling Shri Mataji as you do in Kabbalah. However, the things that were implemented of not hitting children were still in practice. So that was good to know. I don't know what the current scenario is, but it was.
No, I don't think
in
I
20...
I'd be very surprised if that's still allowed.
No, I don't think it is. I wouldn't think so, because our daughter Shri Devi just finished in 2023. She did her class 12 from there. So yeah, so it's still very much there, and thank God for these Sahaj schools, because and what Shri Mataji gives all of us and the children through us, you know, not just our own children, but the collective children as well, you know, because it's the small family we have that Shri Mataji has bestowed us with, isn't it?
Yeah.
Great. It's so nice that you've taken this time out to share your lovely, lovely stories, and absolutely
it's an absolute privilege for us, really.
moments.
Absolute privilege.
Incredible moments. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you very, very much for sharing.
Jai
And
Shri Mataji.
thank you, Shri Mataji, again and again for everything. Jai Shri Mataji.
Jai Shri Mataji.